Hi, everybody. My name is Johnny Pialu. I'm here coming to you for the first time to talk about Interview with the Vampire. Um, the first time I'm gonna give a little backstory. The first time I ever really watched this show was last year. My best friend had put me on to it, and make it so bad, I had kept seeing like advertisement for it, and I was like, I might go back and look at it, but I never did. But then when we were together, I finally watched it, and I absolutely fell in love with the show. So I'm just at that point with the show. Like for a long time, I was just watching it over and over again, and then like listening to people talk about it. So I figured, why not? I join a conversation and start talking about it. So I'll get into like the first episode and I'll give maybe like, I don't know, maybe a brief overview. I'll probably start off first, maybe like going into it, but I'll expand upon it more once I get into it. But I really enjoyed the show. I know of the original, but I never watched the original. And I do enjoy the changes that they made, even though I don't really know the original like that. It makes it much more I think relatable. And not only that, it really does allow a lot of ambiguity to come into it, and it also allows a lot of other, I would say, maybe stretches or other perspectives and alternatives. So going into it, I will say, when I will do these interviews, I probably will talk about the episode in a way that is you can tell I watched the other episodes. It's not like I'm going, oh, I haven't seen what has happened in the other episode yet. But yeah. So just to give a good backstory, I'm pretty sure you watched it already. If you haven't, with Interview with the Vampire, with this one, it's currently set in New Orleans, 1910, and the main characters are, well, we're introduced with Louis, who is at the time a pimp. He is of Creole descent. And so, Creole, if you don't know it, I don't want to go too much into it. But Creole is kind of like it's not another race, but it is its own, I would say, culture and heritage in that region. And it is like a mixed group of people of African descent, of French descent, if I'm not mistaken, like Native American descent. So it's really like I would say maybe like multiracial and multicultural group of people, but a lot of times they present as being black, or maybe you would say mixed race. Um, and so when you see me looking off to the side, I'm looking at my notes. So Louis is a pimp of Creole descent, and his complexion and family lineage does allow him to walk kind of like in between blackness and whiteness. He is still very much so a black man, but because of his complexion, he's not like a deeply melanated black man. He is a lighter complected black man. So in that essence, he's allowed to, I won't say allowed, but he kind of is able to go through the isms of race where he's kind of like, oh, he's black enough or he's not too black, kind of like a safe black. So he's given he's in situations where he has opportunities, but he's still being oppressed and he's still being disrespected and he's still really living the experience of a black man. I guess you would say a black man with um, some privilege at that time. So we see Lestat. Lestat is the French vampire who is the other main character in the movie. Not in the movie. It kind of flows like a movie, but a long movie. But it's not the movie. It's not a movie. This one is the show. So Lestat sees Louis for the first time pulling a knife on his brother for preaching outside his brothel. So I'm gonna be all over the place. I'm sorry, y'all. But we start off with Louis sitting with Daniel, and Daniel is his interviewer pretty much the person who is writing the story, pretty much because Louis is telling his life story thus far. He's a vampire. So he's telling his life story as a human and when he became a vampire. And Daniel will learn later on encountered first met Louis back in the 70s. We're currently in 2022 as of right now when we are listening, not listening, but watching the first episode. So because of that, we're in 2022. I believe he meets Daniel for the first time in 2023, which is about 50 years prior. So he's reached back out to Daniel again to say that he wants to start back up this retelling of his life. And that's how we get to New Orleans, and we are in the scene that we're in. It's 1910. It's a lot of brothels. Louis is a pimp, so he owns a lot of brothels. I think he said about half a dozen on, you would probably say, like the black side of town. So unbeknownst to Louis, Lestat is a vampire. He doesn't know that yet, but Lestat is kind of like perusing the area. He's new to New Orleans. He's French, so New Orleans makes sense for him to come there because they have as French history. It was founded by the French. Louisiana Purchase was bought by the French, so it's very francophone influenced. Then I would say, what did I say? So yeah, Lestat sees Louis for the first time. He sees him pulling a knife out on his brother Paul. His brother Paul, who is Louis' brother, is what we could say a little bit mentally ill. I don't know if he's like, maybe I don't, he could be schizophrenic, I believe. I think. And has these deep religious thoughts. So of course he doesn't agree with what Louis is doing in his line of business, but Louis' line of business is what is taking care of the family. The family's business was the sugar cane. The daddy died, and they were in jeopardy of losing everything. So Louis had to, like within a few months, come up with something to do for money, and he got into that business. And it's important that Lestat does see him for the first time because he says something about you can't be seen as being weak in Storyville. Storyville is the city or the town or the area where the brothels are. So with that being the case, with it being in Storyville, I'm telling you y'all, I'm gonna be all over the place and I apologize. With it being in I lost my train of thought. With it being in Storyville, it's on this side of town. Lestat sees him, and Paul is out there preaching in front of his brothels because, of course, he wants him to stop doing that. So, in order to make sure that he sets the tone and he wants Paul to leave, but also making sure that people are watching, so he doesn't want anyone else to see him or feel like they can try him. So he pulls the knife out of his cane and presses it to Paul's chest or his neck, kind of like telling him to get on, go home. Like, I'm not playing with you. Like, get from out front of my business with this. He doesn't know, but Lestat sees that, and Lestat is kind of like, "Ooh, like, okay, I'm a bit intrigued. Like, he must be about something." There's another brothel owner on the other side of town. His name is Tom Anderson, and he also is in politics. I think he is. I can't remember. I don't think he's one of the aldermen, but he's somebody. So Louis has a regular over at Tom's brothel, which is Lily, and Lily is a front for Louis being gay. Um, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know if she necessarily knows that at first, but I think she knows that Louis just comes to her for like company with talking. It's not necessarily for he actually wants to have sex with her. Um, he really just comes to her for talking. But because she works at the brothel, it's assumed that she would be doing those things with him, any sexual things, but he's not interested in that because he really doesn't like women. Well, he doesn't want women in that arena. So he meets up with Lily. When he sees Lily at the what is it called? The Fair Play Saloon, Lestat is already sitting with Lily. And we don't know it yet, but because Lestat is a vampire, he can read minds. So it's possible that he could have read Louis' mind, that he wanted to go to the saloon, and he got there knowing who he was going to be with so that he could run into him. So pretty much he is talking to Lestat knows that he's seen Louis before, but Louis doesn't know that Lestat is for Louis, this is his first time ever seeing Lestat. So they're having exchanges. Well really he's walking out on a balcony and Louis and not Louis, but Lestat and Lily are talking, and there's everybody's name start with a damn L in this one. But they're talking and they're speaking in French. She doesn't know French, but Louis knows French, and he's able to say what she asks Lestat what he's saying, and he says it in English. And Lestat is like, "Oh, you speak French?" And she's like, "We speak all types of tongues in New Orleans." And they pretty much kind of do a little bit of small talk, and Lestat makes a reference that he's kind of shocked that Louis was able to make it into the saloon, and he didn't mean that as a dig, but he kind of was like, it's obvious this is a. He didn't necessarily say that, but it was implied that this is like the white saloon, even though Lily is she kind of comes off as a Creole woman too. This is a white saloon. They may have people of color work in here, but to be a patron and to come in here, no, you can't be your kind and come in here. So the fact that you can is a bit like, who are you? But and during this time, Lestat ends up hypnotizing, kind of like paralyzing Louis, because Louis sits down, he starts talking to them, um, Lily, and he kind of makes little jabs at how Lestat looks. Really like his clothing because it's a bit dated. Because Lestat is technically from what, the 17th or the 18th century, whichever one, I can't remember right now. He was born in the 1700s. So he kind of still has that style of dress. This is the early 1900s. So it's not, he looks dated. And so Lestat is able, like they have this kind of like back and forth, kind of like little nice nasties. And like we say, Lestat knows that he's interested in Louis, but Louis doesn't know that about Lestat, and he doesn't know he's a vampire. So that now that he knows he's a vampire, it's like, well, he doesn't know he's a vampire right now. When Lestat is hypnotizing him, he's able to speak to him in French, and he pretty much kind of lets him know that I want you, and I know you kind of want me in a way. And Louis is paralyzed, like he's just able to sit there and look at Lestat. He can't speak, he can't respond, none of that. And then after he comes out of the spell, Lily's like, "What did he say?" And he was like, "More than he should have." He didn't want to translate it in French because that would have been kind of telling on himself. So, of course, Louis still wants to spend time with Lily in a kind of like, I guess, checkmate. They kind of have a draw on who puts the most money down, who's going to be able to have that night with Louis. And Lestat wins. And he was like, he hopes to see him around. He did tell him that when he found out his name was Louis, he was like, "Oh, what a coincidence, because when I was traveling here, I was thinking about going to St. Louis or New Orleans. Good thing I stopped in New Orleans, and you were to be my destiny, Louis, whatever it may be." I don't know if I'm telling it right. But we kind of go into where no, not yet. Okay. Told you I'm reading over my notes. Oh, I have a lot to go. I feel like I'm reading over my notes. So Tom Anderson, who owns the who owns the saloon, he kind of like has a little working arrangement with Louis. He has Louis meet him at a private card game where him and other white men of New Orleans meet up, like other politicians, aldermen and councilmen and stuff like that. And they're talking about a business venture, and they want pretty much Louis' intake and kind of pretty much his work to how to go about starting his business. And he was kind of like, well, if I do it, I want 15%. And they want to lowball him, of course, and give him 10%. Lestat is at the table and he's new to town, so they like ask Louis, does he know him? He was like, yeah, we met over some lilies. Play on Lily, her name. So Lestat is able to hypnotize everyone at the table now and speak to Louis telepathically, not verbally, but through his mind, and let him know that the men at the table, they're undermining you on purpose. They think you're beneath them because of, you know, your race and how you were treated in this country. They are trying to lowball you. Go for the 15%. But then, and so he takes cards from, I believe it was it Tom? I can't remember. It was one of them. And he takes cards from one of them and puts them in Louis' hand so that he'll win the game. The whole time he's acting like he doesn't really know how to play this game. So he gets, Louis a bit intrigued, but he goes along with it, ends up winning the game. And we kind of transition into start seeing scenes of Lestat pretty much courting Louis. They're going out on, I guess you could say, dates. Like they're going to shows. There are times where, and mind you, all this is being narrated by Louis to Daniel. So you hear them going to the operas and things of that such. And because of their race, Louis being a black man, Creole man, he when they are in public, he does have to walk behind Lestat. So we meet Louis' family early on, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But during all the time that he's courting, I feel like Lestat knows that he's courting Louis, but I don't think that Louis knows that Lestat is kind of courting him. He kind of, I think he probably feels it, but it's gonna be led with, oh, we're just kind of hanging out, we're new friends. But like at the extent that they're hanging out and the feelings around it is more than just I'm hanging out with a friend. This is somebody that I'm really interested in. So I'm pretty sure word gets around town that Louis is kind of frolicking with this, hanging out with this white guy. So he meets up with his sister Grace, and he meets up at the house. And they pretty much talking about him being gone all these nights hanging out with this white man. And Louis says he ain't white, he French. And to me, that's when we first realized that even if Louis hasn't decided for himself, he most definitely is into Lestat. He most definitely is romantically interested in Lestat. Because yes, French is like the nationality, and we would say white is like the ethnicity. So for him to correct his sister, be like, he ain't white, he French. Almost like, well, we got white here, but his white is different. So call it by what it is. It was kind of like, don't go too hard on my man without saying don't go too hard on my man. It was given, don't talk about him too bad. And I was like, okay, Louis, you already defending Lestat and you don't even know it. And well, I guess you don't even realize it. But and then his sister kind of look at him like, please, he is white, French, the same thing. One thing that when even like those unspoken moments between him and Grace, I think Grace is aware that Louis is gay or might be gay. I think it's unspoken in the family, especially considering that time. But a big part of me feels like Grace would be comfortable in accepting Louis and who he is. I think they have a lot of pressures from outside in society, and especially within their family with their mom. But how it was implied is that him and Grace were very close. So, like best friends. So I truly believe, because the way when he sat down, it was giving like sister girl vibes. Because Grace is also getting married, and he, to kind of like get the conversation off of him and Lestat, he gives her with, I think it was trip to Paris or London as like her honeymoon. So she's excited about that, and that kind of takes the conversation off of him and Lestat. But she's pretty much like, okay, you spend all this time with this man, you might as well invite him to dinner so that he can meet the family. So we do get the point where Lestat is meeting the families, and we're at dinner. So he's at dinner with the mom, Paul, Levi, who is Grace's fiance, and Grace. Paul is there, and I think Paul can pick up on that Lestat. I don't think necessarily that he's a vampire, but that he has there's a dark essence with him. And not to say that, oh, because he's a vampire, he's evil, he's the devil, but there is something that is opposite of their reality, which their side of humanity and the way that they practice religion. There is something opposite of that. And a lot of times we're told the opposite of something is like the bad or not the good. So no, we only know of Lestat as vampire Lestat. So yes, we do see we know the blood drinking aspect of that. So I kind of feel as if that's the energy that Paul is picking up off of Lestat, but he may not necessarily know that that's what it is, but he's speaking on it. And he speaks out vocally, especially when he's asking him, he pretty much asked him, do you believe in God? Kind of like, do you go to church? All of that. And Lestat kind of like checks him and is like, yes, I do. I know, pretty much to kind of checkmate him. I know religion better than you do. I know of the first teachings of Aquinas and all of the philosophers who pretty much started Christianity. And but he's hypnotizing Paul. And he has Paul in a stand, like in a hypnotized state, where he's saying these things, and Lestat is getting overwhelmingly angrier as he's talking, because Lestat is talking about how there was a point in his life where he wanted to be a priest, and he himself was just as interested in religion and is deeply devoted to it, like Paul is. He sees himself in Paul in that essence, but his father and his brothers at the time didn't agree with that. So they pretty much beat it out of him. They tortured him from practicing his religious teachings and really getting even further and learning more about religion. Louis sees that that's what he's doing, and he's like, stop. But Lestat keeps going. He's like in such I would say, rage, like a building rage. And then Louis has to slam his hand on the table, like, don't do that shit here. Don't do that with my family. And that obviously like breaks the spell, but it obviously makes it even more awkward at the table that something has happened that everybody else does not know that has happened. And what the hell has happened? And so I think for them it's like, you don't brought this white guy into our house. We don't know what he is. He done just done something. Paul is very fragile. You have had an outburst. And then the mama was like, well, we're just gonna, she's trying to move the conversation along. And she was like, well, because he apologizes for his outburst. And she says, it's okay. Let's go along with the story on how Levi met Grace. So later on that night, okay. Tell you, I'm looking at my notes. Later on that night, as they're leaving the family dinner, Louis kind of starts to vent to Lestat about the pressures he has with being in his family, being the sole provider, the judgment that they have. Because I think everybody kind of underlyingly knows that Louis is different. Not only do they judge him because of his pimping, but I think they judge him because they think they know he's gay. Because he is like the family, he's kind of like a bachelor at the time, and he's not around any women. And then especially during that time, it's like you like 30 years old and you're not married. What is we don't ever see you with a woman, and then when we do find out that you're hanging out, you have somebody you're hanging out with around town, it's some white guy. So it's like, what are you doing? So he's venting to him, and somehow they end up at Lestat's place. They end up walking, and Lestat pretty much invites him inside, and the whole like feel of the situation, you can feel that it is now changed. That Louis knows, like he understands what is like what's understood doesn't need to be spoken, and Louis can feel that Lestat is like, come on upstairs to my room so we can get well acquainted. Just stop, because I like you and you like me. You want me, and I want you. So let's not even play any games. And he tries to like, like no, we'll kind of take. Um, I guess Louis kind of trying to like play it off, but I think Lestat was like, well, no, there's some lilies, kind of like a flower, and he looks and sees Lily on the patio. So I think when he sees that, Louis knows that Lestat knows him through and through. In that essence, like he even went and got Lily for him to be comfortable in the moment, because him having this moment with him, just even having to acknowledge, even within himself, that, oh, I do want to have this sexual moment with this man. And yes, he also happens to be a white man. We're doing the time of Jim Crow. So I'm pretty sure he has all of these conflicting feelings. And so for Lestat to even kind of think, well, I know you're going to be a bit timid. Let me help you in this moment, kind of ease you into it. Cause I'm already there. I don't have no problems, no nothing. But I know you do. You got some qualms with it. So I'ma make it easier for you to get into this moment. So kind of like, when a stripper go out for the first time and she gotta have about 4, 5 shots for you to relax. So that's what he did for Louis. Um they end up talking, and Lily tells him that Lestat bought the whole shebang out for her, made her feel like a princess. So they do the whole back and forth. I guess of like entertaining and appeasing Lily, because they start a threesome. They have to get her off, and they do, and I appreciate them doing that. I appreciate them doing that. Make sure y'all handle baby girl, then y'all can do whatever y'all gonna do. Because I feel like a lot of women already don't be being taken care of the way they should. And it's two of y'all in the room. There's no reason why she shouldn't have been able to get her things handled. And I'm happy she was able to get that handled. But then they well before after after well, I think Lily somebody I think let's stop Louis goes down on Lily, however, and after she, gets off and everything. Lestat Louis is on the couch with Lily, and Lestat is like on another couch across from him, and he's unbuttoning his shirt, and he's communicating to him via his mind, and he's pretty much like, "It's okay, go ahead, take your clothes off, and lay your pretty little head right where you want to lay it." And Louis is like, I think he finally realizes, okay, I can go full out in this moment. And that's when he rushes Lestat and they start to kiss. We see the full shebang of, them being naked. Lestat like has Louis in the air. Like he's suspended in the air. I'm assuming whatever Lily is, I guess, still passed out from, you know. So I'm assuming he has him in the air, like suspended, and because Louis is narrating, he's telling Daniel how beautiful of a moment this was, like more than he could even comprehend. And um I think Lestat bit Louis on the side of his neck, like he took a little bite of him because he nicked his finger and put a little bit of blood to close the wound. And he was like, it's just a little taste for vampires. But he was like, for him as a human, it was mind blowing. And it's like the strongest high of any high. It's like I'm assuming it feels maybe like a galactic orgasmic feeling. So he left the next morning and he went to Grace's wedding, I guess her wedding shower. One thing I want to point out, the way that when he left, he put his clothes on and left the next morning. The way Lestat came down those steps in that robe, it was given, oh, I know I put it on him and he gonna be back. It was given, oh, I know I put it on him. He gonna be back. Ain't no, it's not if, it's just when. Cause I know he ain't never had it. He will never have it like that outside of me. So he gonna be back. He gonna be back. So we're at, he leaves so that he can be on time to be for Grace's wedding. Of course, they go through everything for Grace's wedding. We have a scene where Paul and Louis dance together because they used to be altar boys, in the Catholic Church, and they used to tap. And they had the ABCFG boys, ABCDEFG, I don't know, altar boys. I don't know, pretty much come dancing for God or something like that. So they dance. Everybody loves it, and they have the wedding. You know, Grace has gotten married, so the party goes well over into the next morning. It looks like because the sun is rising. The sun is rising on top of the house, and Louis and Paul go up on the house together, and they're talking. And Paul asks Louis, does he think he's good for Grace? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he was kind of like, well, he hopes so because Grace deserves to be taken care of. She's got a lot of love to give. And he asked him about Lestat. Was he still having dealings with Lestat? And Louis was like, no, I'm done with him. And he said, because he's coming to take souls. He told me he was here to take souls. And he was like, you say that about everybody. Paul gets up and walks towards the end. And as he's walking, he's talking to Louis. And Louis is still sitting. And Paul tells Louis that he loves him. And him not realizing that, he's like, oh, I love you too, Paul. And that's when Paul walks off the house and to his death. And we really kind of see that's kind of the end of Louis in a sense. Not from the vampirical sense, but in the end, like emotionally, he's broken kind of beyond repair at that point. And we go to seeing that his mama is very upset to the point that she blames Louis, and everybody's grieving, and she's saying that Louis must have said something to Paul. Um, and because of that, Paul won't get into heaven because that's a belief. If you take your own life, you won't be granted into the pearly gates. And so she feels as if it's because of Louis that now Paul is condemned to hell. So of course, Louis is upset about that. As they are walking back from Paul's wake, I would say Paul's wake. Yeah, they're going to the cemetery. It's at night now. Louis offers to walk their mama home, and she says no. She'll have Levi walk her home, and that's a dig to Louis because he's her son. not Levi. And for her to say that she wants Levi to walk her home, it's almost like you're not my child anymore. I think Lestat coming around, her already having suspicions about Louis' sexuality, her already there's already some contention between Louis and his mother. And and losing Paul, and Paul was like her baby. He was so fragile. I think she just wanted somebody to blame. She knew she couldn't blame Grace, so she wanted to blame Louis. And I think for Louis, that's it felt like his mother disowned him because she kind of did. And I feel like that was the beginning of the death of his humanity. Like he lost his brother. In a sense, he lost his mama. And as of right now, Grace is kind of like the last person he has because Grace is like, don't worry about it. She's just upset. So he tries to, he's trying to drink his sorrows away at this point. He, well, before then, Lestat approaches him as they're walking to the cemetery, which was so insensitive. Lestat was kind of like, why are you ignoring me? He was like, I've been waiting on my balcony for you at night. Don't play with me. You know what we had. Don't play with me and act like I'm a wham bam. Thank you, ma'am, because that's not the case. I will pull up on your ass. Literally. At your brother's funeral, I don't care. Answer my texts, answer my phone calls, even though he not texting and calling him. But that's what it was given. And Louis like, I'm at my brother's funeral. Like, give me some respect. And he kind of like, well, your brother was gonna do that anyway. Kind of like kind of like pretty much saying your brother and where he was at mentally, he was gonna do something like that anyway. So I don't know why you shocked. And it's like, bruh, you so disrespectful and inconsiderate. You need your ass beat. But he pushes him off, and Lestat, you can see like the overview of Lestat is like calling him. Not necessarily like vocalizing it, but his pull on him is like pulling him to him. Louis is trying to fight it, so he goes to the church and he wants to confess his sins to Father Matthias. That monologue, that soliloquy was so good. He was like, I laid down with a man. I take things from people and I act like I'm giving them things, but I'm just taking from them. I make myself believe I'm doing more better than what I am, but I'm really not. Just to make myself feel better about myself. And then we hear all this commotion and this screaming. Come to find out that Lestat has gotten into the church and he has pulled Father Matthias out of, I think it's Father Matthias out of there, and he's attacking him, like feeding on him. Louis comes out and sees that, and he starts to attack Lestat, like starts stabbing him with his cane or whatever. To which he realizes it's not killing him, and he's like, "What in the hell? What is going on?" Another priest is in there, and we see him try to, like, he sees it, and he's like, "Oh my god!" He's trying to run to safety out of the church. Well, he has the gates closed, and the man can't get out, and he punches through his face. So there's blood and guts everywhere. And Lestat goes into his monologue about how he sees how mistreated Louis is by his race in America, and how he always has to play it safe, and how because of his race and his mistreatment, it truly has in a way dehumanized him, because he's not able to act out his humanity because he's so distracted by race that he has to be so apparent of the dangers that it can cause, or having to perform a certain way in front of certain people for his own safety, for his own livelihood, that it legit is killing who he is as a human, because he can't even function as a full human because he is being mistreated because of his skin color. And doesn't just say that, but he just kind of says this country and the things you have to go through, it really is killing your humanity. And I can give you that gift again on the other side in death. It's crazy as it sounds, like you can be more alive and more in your most pure, primal human nature on the other side in death than you will actually be in life, because you have all these things that are intentionally holding you back that you can't even function as a full human being. So you aren't having your full human experience because of these things. And he wins Louis over, and Louis accepts to go over to the darkness to become a vampire. And he drains him of his blood, and then he gives him his blood. Lestat gives him his blood to drink, and now Lestat is his maker, and Louis is his fledgling. And he Lestat kind of gives him this new life. Be all the beautiful things that you are without apology. Don't apologize for your skin color. Don't apologize for the way that you show up. There's nothing wrong with that. But you've been told that is something wrong. Other people have been told that it's wrong, and things have been put in place to make sure that you feel the effects of it being wrong, that you can't even operate in your humanity. You can't even figure out the things that you really like or the things that you really want, because you're not even allowed to like certain things or want certain things. Be all the beautiful things that you are without apology. And the name of this episode is called In Throes of Increasing Wonder. And I don't think it's just because of that, but also just because of that piece. But I do think it's a big indicator on, in a way that Lestat gave Louis death, he gave him more life. And I think in a way that we understand life and death, that completely bewilders us. And so that now is Louis has kind of been reborn, but reborn in a different way, that he can't go back to the way that he understands life before. He has to live as like a new, different organism. Yes, he is showing up as a man, and he is a man, but the existential thing that is life is different for him. So now we have to question everything. Question, what are your true instincts? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you believe the things that you do? Once you take off all of these restraints and realize nothing is really concrete, it's just what we all agree to, what we're going to believe, and therefore because we're all agreeing to it, it's now true. Now when you take off those things, there's increasing wonder. There's so many things that can be possible and to be true, because all it takes is for you to believe in it. And now Louis has to have a new belief system, because he's not human anymore, he's a vampire. So yeah, that's my first overview of Interview with the Vampire. Is kind of long, but I try to make it a little, try to condense it. um this is my first time talking about Interview with the Vampire. I'll probably be doing reviews off the episodes, see how they go. If you watch this, please get in the comments and tell me how you like Interview with the Vampire, or what you thought of the first episode. Are you getting newly into this? Is this a new genre that you like? Because I am really into like gothic, like Southern Gothic. And I do like that it has Southern Gothic also with the LGBTQ and everything. So it's it's a good, like, untapped um storyline, but still familiar enough. But yeah, what are you enjoying about Interview with the Vampire. And anything that I said, I think right now I kind of gave maybe like an overview. But when we do more, when I get really into the analysis, I try not to go too much on a tangent. But when we really get really into it, just put down in the comments what you might have thought. Did you agree? Did you see something that I might have missed? Anything. And once again, my name is Johnny Pialu, and I'll be back later with another review of episode 2 for Interview with the Vampire. Stay tuned, and when I put that one out, vibe with me and let me know how you feel about that one.